welcome to Thursday Night Book Club. I'm Zindika and I'm part of the MNPC Mindfulness Network People of Colour, and I'm hosting the Thursday Night Book Club. Our guest this evening visiting our book club, we have here our Mark Leonard, and he's in conversation with Umaya Balakho. So, welcome Mark and Umaya, lovely to see you. Thank you for being here and coming along, visiting and presenting at our book club this evening. So, welcome to those who've just joined us. You haven't missed anything, we're just beginning. So we're just at the start and we're just welcoming our guests. And the order of the evening is that I do a brief meditation before I introduce my guest. So I'll introduce Mark, and then he'll also introduce his guest, Dr. Umaya. So let's just drop into the meditation, and then we'll go on with the presentation. So please, let's just start by wriggling our toes. Just wriggle your toes. And wriggle your fingers. And let's just wriggle the shoulders. Just move them around a little bit. And then I'd like you to open the eyes wide and then squeeze them tight, shut. And then open the eyes wide again. Squeeze them tight, shut. And one more time, open the eyes wide. And let's just squeeze them tight, shut. And let's just come back together and let's take in a breath and come into the space. And let's just be mindful of our breath this evening. And be mindful of our breath as a way of connecting to here and now. And our breath, just let us know that we are totally here in the moment. So let's just be here in the moment with our breath, calmly breathe in. There's no hurry. Just calmly breathe in, coming into the moment, a moment of stillness. Maybe for the first time today, you're taking a moment to be still. So let's just be at peace with the breath for this moment. Be calm, be peaceful. Do this, it begins to calm down our very busy system. So we also, when we bring calm into the body, it allows us to drop into hearing, listening, and learning, and just being more comfortable during the session, quite comfortable with the breath. So let's just take in 10 breaths, and a breath in and out is a cycle. So we're going to take in 10 breaths, in and out for 1, in and out for 2. So let's just do the first 5 together, and then you can continue for a moment of stillness, breathing in for a further 5. So let's just take in the first breath together. In, breath in, breath out. And 1, breath all the way in. Breath out. That's 2. Another breath in. All the way in and out. For 3. Another breath in and out. For 4. And a breath in and out. That's 5. And continue for another 5 cycles in and out. And let's just take in breath 10, in and out, and lose the counting as you come back to your own pace. Breathing, coming back to breath, coming back to feelings, coming back to being here, coming back to the present moment, and feeling that breath rushing in through the nostrils, in and out. Feeling that flow of air in and out of the nostrils. And just take a few minutes to feel that flow of breath in and out of the nostrils. Let's just bring ourselves back slowly. Follow the breath, coming back to the present moment. And remember, you can do this anytime. Just begin some focus with the breath and taking a moment to be still. Okay, so let's just take in a few moments and just taking a nice big breath in as we gradually come back together and sigh that out. Welcome back, welcome back. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to and as we do that, I will, we'll stop the music. And then, somebody coming in. And then as we stop the music, I will be introducing Mark Leonard. And of course, Mark, do feel free to fill in any gaps. So I'm going to do a summary of your biography. If that's okay. And
of course, thank you.
And then after that, you can go on to introduce Sumaya. Yeah?
Right, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, Mark. So Mark grew up in a countercultural bubble of post-war idealism and 60s bohemian sensibilities that made Planet St. Ives and Cornish art internationally famous. He studied zoology, but realized that something was wrong because the whole life is greater than the sum of the parts. Mark has combined the quest for answers in two realms: understanding traditional wisdom in search of healing and understanding how to create a sustainable future. He played a key role in establishing the Oxford Mindfulness Centre in 2008, and in spite of resistance from powerful interests in therapy and academia, has been a leading innovator in the field. He developed Mindfulness-Based Organisational Education, MBOE, which is the first short social mindfulness program recognized by BAMBA and VMBN. Social mindfulness empowers us by enabling us to see how we create a sense of difference and gives us the tools to create an inclusive, sustainable future for all. So that's Mark. Welcome, Mark, to the Thursday Night Book Club.
Oh, thank you, Zindika. That was well done. Putting all that together. Anyway, it's lovely to be here and talk about the work that I've been doing and now sort of sharing and collaborating with a group of people to disseminate the ideas and teachers in different parts all over the world, but mostly in Europe, and Umaya, who's with us tonight, who's a clinical psychologist based in Morocco, and we've been talking, connecting through LinkedIn for 8 or 9 years, and I think and now Umaya's translated the little book that we're sort of talking about tonight, which is the notes to the course that you mentioned, Zindika. It's very short, but I'm sure a great effort to translate. So it's been translated into several different languages, and Umaya's translated it into French, and she's been working also on an Arabic version. I mean, Umaya's doing some amazing work in Morocco, leading ways to make psychology, the profession of psychology, recognized in Morocco, because it's still very much a sort of psychiatric biomedical model. So she's sort of leading that work in Morocco. That's been going on for about 10 years, I think. And I think to sum up very briefly the kind of shared views that brought us together is that, and I'm sure Umaya it would be great if Umaya would expand on these ideas, that the idea of social mindfulness in the program, that the mindfulness-based organization, the MBOE program, where we're thinking about human beings as part of their social community rather than as individuals. I think Umaya appreciated that there's more to therapy than sort of individual psychology, and that we can't really ever take the individual out of the community. And this is very much more like a kind of traditional approach to understanding life and well-being and all of those kind of things. So that's really how we met and talked about things, and why Umaya is so interested in supporting and being a champion and collaborating with me and others to bring this idea of social mindfulness into not just into the world of workplace, but even to change the ideas behind the way we think about individuals and psychology and illness, mental health and well-being. How's that, Umaya? Please extend.
It's very humbling. First of all, it's really lovely to be part of this Thursday book club. Thank you, Zindika, for having me part of it. And thank you for Mark for inviting me. And it is true. And I think that's what's bringing us together this evening. It's the sense of what's at the center of what makes sense of all of us within our daily lives, be it professional environment or interpersonal environment. And I think what we have always talked about, Mark and I, is the sense of relatedness, the sense of being part of a community that gives not only sense to where the individual is and to which he or she belongs, but also that part where it makes all of us safe to be part of a group of people. Usually in a work environment, we speak of teams. We're part of teams, so we're part of a group. In school, we're part of a classroom. Within our family systems, it's within the family system that we're part of. It could be the nuclear family system or the extended family system. And from the traditional belief system, the individual only exists within his or her community. And I think that what got me really interested when I started reading Mark's LinkedIn post. I think we were trying to figure out how many years back that was. I think it was 6, 7, 8 years ago. And I thought that it was mind-blowing back then to read how he was addressing mindfulness from a relatedness perspective, from a social perspective, rather than a self-centered well-being approach, a self-centered awareness, and paying attention to one's subjective, emotional, mindful, self-regulating system, but rather within a system where we relate to one another, being mindful of oneself in relationship to the group. And it really did speak right away to me, coming from a traditional belief system, but yet as a clinical psychologist, having worked with individuals, with families, with groups also, and realizing that the suffering, whatever the cause of the suffering, it's always in relation to somebody else or system or a group or an environment. So it's always the self in relations to the environment, to the subjective, emotional, sensory, somato ecosystem. So even in my line of work, whenever I work with individuals, and we always speak of that with Mark, I always try to work from an integrative perspective, but where the individual brings in his ecosystem and goes back to that ecosystem to implement whatever is necessary to find a subjective equilibrium within his or her community. I can speak of this. I will take over the conversation. So Mark, please. And I just want to go back to something that we often discuss. I know from the early 2000s, you've been proactive, making meditation accessible to the mainstream audience. And you played a key role in establishing the Oxford Mindfulness Centre, and also bringing later on mindfulness into the workplace to the point where you have developed, and there is a shift of paradigm. We're moving from mindfulness from an individual self-regulating and self-help practice and a therapeutic practice from a cognitive psychology perspective to social mindfulness. So I really was wondering if you see a problem with mindfulness in that sense, working from, you know, that shift and that movement.
I guess it's been a long path of like swinging from one position to another. Of, I mean, I think it's a good thing to learn things and change your mind. I've probably done it many times. When I was looking for a way of, you know, addressing sort of serious problems that I think we have that are as much to do with environmental problems as social problems, and I gave up working in sustainability areas of waste management and fisheries, and then I just thought if there's some way of really making what were then things that I understood from a Buddhist perspective as being accessible to a wider population, we might be able to do something about changing the way society worked. And then, as you say, I got involved with setting up the Oxford Mindfulness Centre, and I really kind of bought into the whole idea that if we could train people to through the mindfulness program, or disseminate this was going to naturally have some kind of change effect. And I think it will, and I think it is having. And I think there was a study that I've just looked at, I can't remember exactly, and saw it yesterday, and it did show that people that were more, that mindfulness did affect the way that they felt when they saw injustice. So people that tended to have higher measures of mindfulness tended to react to injustice they saw being carried out against others more strongly than people that seem to be less mindful. So it's beginning to be evidence to show that there are significant impacts that could have positive benefits in society, and creating more understanding and more of an appreciation of how we can all contribute to a better society is coming out of the studies. But then after a while, I began to think that maybe we needed to make it more explicit that this isn't about self-help or therapy. That, I mean, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with self-help or therapy. It's just that my intention was more about social change than it was about therapy. And I guess really decided, seeing teaching in the workplace, these short programs based on mindfulness, practical guide to finding peace in the frantic world, what we called the Frantic World course, I began to see that there was a lot of what was going on, or the benefits were to do with the way people were, the social interactions and the social learning, and maybe just sitting down for a few minutes together in silence, beginning to feel a sense of trust and understanding, and the kind of activities that were shared learning, and people beginning to listen to each other. And so I felt that those social interactions were more important in understanding each other and our own mind through understanding each other, that actually had more benefit than the actual meditation itself. And so that's why I ended up designing the program that was taught for NHS hospital staff, where we did a trial. And that was primarily about using short mindfulness practices to be able to see in our own mind and in our own experience how we create a sense of self and other, because it's only when we understand that we can actually go, hang on a minute, I've made up some kind of projection or belief or judgment, and I really should be careful about that I should try and understand and ask questions before I react in a way that is defensive or judgmental about somebody else. And then we feel safe, we can create that safety, and we kind of let go of that sense of being someone that's under threat, and we feel comfortable and safe with people around us and trust in. And in a sense, our sense of self almost disappears. It comes out of feeling threatened rather than feeling safe. So that's how I thought that the course could go on and actually explain to people or show people how that sense of self was lost when we felt safe and trusted with people around us.
So would it be fair to say in that sense that by losing that sense of self, whenever we experience psychological safety within the group and within the community, it is more of a systemic experience that enables the individual, the community that the individual is part of, to go through change, to experience together whatever that community might need to see the change. Would it be fair to address?
I think that absolutely, you know, but I think if we're able to see ourselves as beings that can change in different relationships and different social experiences, we're willing to adapt more, and we're willing to adapt ourselves to different people more, and this enables a group of people or a team or a community to adapt together to changing conditions. And there's, I mean, one of the studies that I like to share in conversations is a recent study that was done with 62 teams in pharmaceutical companies, and they measured a psychological measure of mindfulness, and they measured, and they did measurement, you know, they did assessments of the productivity of these teams, and also they looked at the diversity of these teams. And generally speaking, it's well established in organization or psychology that teams with low diversity, where people have the same ideas, the same beliefs, the same culture, tend to outperform teams with high diversity. And that's because teams with high diversity, there's lots of misunderstandings going on, people making judgments and not necessarily listening to each other, or people feel afraid to express themselves, that kind of thing. So, but when there's high psychological safety in these teams, in the diverse teams, they outperform the homogeneous teams or the teams with low diversity, and that's because people feel safe, and they become more ready to share information. They become more willing to listen to each other, listen to different people that otherwise might feel a bit afraid of speaking out, feel more confident about speaking out, and everybody else pays attention to different people's ideas. So you get more ideas, and you get a kind of group mind working that is more adaptive, that can adapt and come up with new ways of doing things more effectively in a changing environment. So yes, that's the long-winded way of describing what happens, I think, to what you're saying, which is really the magic of what is going on. And I'd say that idea of the whole being greater than the sum of the parts, when the whole comes together, is what is behind traditional wisdom, is what's behind spirituality, because it comes from nowhere. It just comes from the fact that people are treating each other fairly and kindly and with attention, and that produces remarkable results.
And we did share an experience together.
Yeah.
Experiencing people coming together in non-judgmental way, in kindness, in respect to the deepest shared community. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that experience that we had?
Are you talking about going to visit Istanbul with you?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I know you've shared experiments, and data, but I thought it might be interesting to share some shared experience about something that you've had the opportunity to experience within the community and within the group.
Well, first of all, I'd say that I visited Morocco over 30 years ago, doing this crazy job supervising carvings that were for architects, for the extensions to one of the big mosques in Saudi Arabia, and I ended up in the village, and I saw this communication going on that was like everybody understood everybody else, and it's almost like, you know, you hear stories of where couples can finish sentences that one starts the other, but this was like the whole village. One word would come or one part of a sentence, and then the part is like a whole mind in the whole village were working together. And so that was really struck me. But I saw a very similar thing again when Umayya invited me to come and visit her community of dervishes or Sufi friends, brothers and sisters, and her teacher in Istanbul. And it's an environment where people from different backgrounds are dedicated to these basic principles of kindness, service, under the guidance of their teacher, and within the idea that they are all losing a sense of, I don't know how, you perhaps correct me, Umayya, but it's an incredible experience to feel.
There is no I, just to jump in. There's no I, there's just a we. The I it's not used, so people just, it's a we experience. It's not an individual experience. It's that experience of oneness, being one community.
And it's that is the idea that represents whatever you call the deity or whatever name you put to it, is that experience of loss of separate sense of protective, fearful self, and the sense of human connection, of kindness and service and appreciation, attention to those around you, that is this wonderful quality that is at the center, at the heart of the human heart, and the heart of, I think, what traditional belief systems and religions are trying to maintain and preserve. And yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's what I'm trying to rebuild with the idea of social mindfulness in a secular context. How do we do this in a secular context without a belief system? And, you know, there were both in the hospital, it's a very diverse group of people. You know, there were a number of African Christians, there were Asian Muslims, there were Asian Hindus, and there were a number of these people, that 7 or 8 people that came on the program from these different backgrounds came up after the course and said, you know, we really like this course because you're teaching what we teach in our communities, but it doesn't come from a religious base. It comes from just a way of doing this that's based on understanding how the human, biological, social, anthropological mind works, and trying to work with that to encourage these qualities to come out naturally.
Reading the book, I'm pretty familiar with the book and the program, and reading the book, which is basically supporting note to the mindfulness-based organizational education program. You do speak of those intentional activities within the group. Would you say that in that intentionality of those activities, the key is to have and develop that insight to the sense of self in relations to other, while putting our intention together in that activity,
and an experience of learning this. I mean, that's what I think, that's why it's such a strong teaching method, is because it's learning these things as a series of activities and exercises and group meditations, and slowly beginning to develop a conscious, intentional understanding, or a conscious understanding that then people can learn. They have the capacity, the agency to be intentional about bringing mindfulness into their experience with others, listening to others, to intentionally build psychological safety in relationships wherever they experience them. So I saw there was a note from William. We've got 10 minutes left. Is it time to open up to questions?
Yes. Mark, thank you so much. It's very informative. I just had a question. Can you just tell us what's packed in? What does it look like? Is it any eight-week course? Is it based on MBSR? How's it delivered? I just wanted to know what the content
Yeah.
of the course, what would that look like? Because I would imagine that I guess it evolves between different population. When you were speaking, it just made me think of these big companies like Amazon and Google, how they kind of create this uniformity within their staff, no matter where they're coming from, and that makes them very efficient. That's the only kind of example that I had about what you're talking about. So I'm just wondering what's in the program, yeah?
So it's an evolution of the Frantic World program, which is a short program, which is for, you know, talked about in the book, the self-help book Mindfulness: A Practical Guide to Finding Peace in Frantic World, which is a short version, a self-help version that's a short self-help version of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. So it comes from a scientific background, but I taught a 6-week version of that to make it shorter. And then that experience led me to build the mindfulness-based, the MBOE, the mindfulness-based organizational education program. And the way I taught it in a trial was with 6 classes of 1 hour with 10-minute guided meditations. Subsequently, I've taught it in, I think it's better, it takes about 1 hour and a quarter for each class. And now offering it as 3 2-hour classes or a 1-day workshop with follow-up check-ins every week for 5 weeks after the course. So that hasn't been trialed yet. So it's very much trying to work out how the program works best for companies, and getting it to and always having some flexibility, but the basic principles of what is taught do remain the same, which is how our sense of self changes and how we can experience feeling, developing a sense of understanding and connection with others around us. That never changes. And the elements, the guided meditations are pretty, I'm not saying they're completely fixed. I was talking about changing one the other day with a new study that's come out about developing awareness of the heartbeat that has helped with autism. So anxiety around autism. We're talking about adapting the program for groups of people in the workplace where there might be a need to accommodate neurodiversity. We can build in slightly different practices and adapt the program for a different objective. But the same basic principles of listening to each other, describing experience will still be the backbone of the program.
I mean, I think a lot of us have so many questions, and we'd like you to come back again.
Can I just ask for Maya, because you've actually translated Mark's work.
I've translated the book into French.
Yes.
I'm working on translating it. I'm finishing up the Arabic version.
Brilliant.
French and Arabic you're translating it to. Ah, okay.
I just have more questions because I'm really excited about what you're doing. I mean, just turning on the TV now and everything that's going on in the world is just like, I think very few people in our lifetime have seen the potential of destruction that is just on our horizon. What can you take out of of all your, not just the book, but your entire world knowledge, you know, your lifespan, each of you? I'm just wondering, like in a minute or two before I hand it to Syndica,
yeah,
what would you say is a punch that you can actually just say, okay, this is how to best prepare, you know, or this is what we can give ourselves in these moments of crisis?
Mark, you want to go ahead?
Okay. I've been grappling with these questions for much of my life because I've come from a background that has an interest that is very concerned about environmental destruction, and at the same time as seeing the problems in contemporary society. That's why I wanted to do the work that I have done with mindfulness. And the simple answer to your question is we need to learn to be able to be open about our experience, to be able to know how to describe it, and to know how to listen to each other without making judgments or even giving advice. But we need to learn how to be curious about what's going on for other people, and hear what they have to say, and acknowledge what they have to say. And these are really expressions of what one learns in mindfulness meditation practice, but put into words and listening in relationship to each other. I can see no other solution or answer to any of the problems that we face today other than in those simple terms.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna share a quote from Rumi, who's a Muslim poet. He says, "You're not a drop in the ocean. You're the entire ocean and a drop." I think what we are witnessing refers to the fact that we are not relating to one another from our essence as one humanity. There are not many humanities or different kind of, there is one unique humanity, and we can only experience that from the basic principle of relating to one another and our what commonalities, what's common to all human beings. And I think when we're talking about social mindfulness, it really taps to that main point where relating to one another goes beyond what we could think or believe. It goes beyond unconscious biases. It just takes that moment in silence for to experience our shared humanity.
Hi. So I was just going to ask a question, because we're here and this is the Mindfulness Network People of Colour. In terms of your course and your book that you've both been working on, I know you've translated it into Arabic and French. How would you say, and also Mark, you'd mentioned it's about it being secular as well in terms of religion, different religious groups participating. What about people, I mean, how would people of colour, would you say, what would they get from it? How could they benefit specifically from it? For example, very soon we're going to have an online retreat, which is to do with social community and cohesion, community cohesion. What do you think? What do you think people would get from that? How could they benefit from that, from your course?
I think that the first thing to say is that I'm working with someone, Mavis Shefi Ajibullah, who is she's was a senior or still works as a senior NHS practitioner in HR, and we're talking about the same points here of beginning to understand. So I'm going to be collaborating with Mavis to produce a program that is a combination of her approach with, she's an award-winning inclusion and diversity practitioner from the NHS, to combine her approach with this approach, the social mindfulness approach. And I think, obviously I'm coming from a different race background and different set of experiences, but I think we're all, as a human being, the issue is about how we feel under threat in different social situations, and being able to find ways of connecting with others around us so that we feel safe. And then the difference doesn't become a threat, it becomes a source of richness, of different perspectives that can come together.
Okay. Thank you both. So we're going to be closing this presentation this evening. So I'd like to say some words that jumped out for me, which was words like adaptability, diversity, and out of all of that, creating connection and togetherness. Those are really important words, and also all of that leading to that spiritual oneness, which does take time. But of course, if you've got a course and a book, then that's how we start, isn't it? So, is there anything you would like to say? Just any last words before we close with a brief meditation?
No, just thank you. It's lovely to be here and sort of talk about these, and it's actually really nice to for the first time to kind of have a conversation like this with you, Omaya, about how we're sharing our different perspectives and kind of more in a formal way to talk about it like that with you, Omaya. So that's great, and lovely thing to do here today too. So thank you, Zindika. Thank you, MMPC Book Club, for inviting us to come and talk about this little book.
Thank you. It has been very lovely. And again, it's about being able to share our experiences and finding the common ground when it comes to relating to one another and finding richness in the difference and the different perspectives. So I enjoyed it very much, and thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Umaya. Thank you for bringing your book, and thank you, Maya, for doing the translations. And those are important when you translate something. That's these are important resources, and I hope that it will serve people well in different countries. And thank you for being here this evening to join us in our Thursday night book club. And we're going to close with a short meditation. So we just need to come back to ourselves and just maybe compose ourselves by just focusing back on the breath, taking a moment so that we can close with a few calm moments, breathing in and out several times. Thank you. Thank you both for writing. Thank you for bringing this knowledge, mindfulness. Thank you for being with us this evening. Thank you to the audience who come along to listen.
See you again, and be well in these difficult times.
Yes. Let's just drop into some breathing, connecting ourselves to the inner world. And sometimes we forget that inner world. So just taking that breath in, connecting the inner and the outer, connecting to that energy. And just allowing that breath to move through, in through the nostrils, flowing in deeply and out again. And as you breathe, that breath of peace, may you all be well, may you all be peaceful, may you all have a calm, restful evening. You are breath as you breathe in. You are breath as you breathe out. Breathing in and out. And let's just relax, reset, and continue with the rest of our evening. Thanks. Thank you.